Good evening, everybody. You're just going to hear me say this one more time, and I promise I won't say it again. But welcome to the meeting. As you join, please keep yourself muted so that the meeting can run smoothly. But we do encourage you to go ahead and start using that chat function and introduce yourself. If you're new to our meeting, let us know. If you've been with us all 12, 13 years that we've been around, let everybody know that as well. We'll get the meeting started shortly. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. It is 6:15. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November monthly meeting of the Human Trafficking Task Force of Southern Colorado. My name is Julie Beller, and I'm the chair for the board of directors of this amazing organization. And it really is an honor to be a part of our board and an active member of the Colorado Springs community. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items before we fully get started. We do ask that you stay muted just so the meeting can move smoothly. Do use the chat function, introduce yourself, and begin networking. Later, when we have our speakers, if you have a question for them, we would ask that you private message host Jane Jones. Please put the word question all in caps and then write your question so that she can track those for us and she'll field those directly to the speakers after they have finished their presentation. I am really excited and thankful that you are here with us this evening. I know that this past week has been absolutely crazy for many of us. And honestly, it's just nice to be able to come together, even though it's virtual, to learn about important issues that pertain to human trafficking. Human trafficking, as we know, is an issue that knows no bounds, and everyone should be concerned and aware of this issue. So thank you for giving us your evening. I hope that you are able to connect with others in our community during our meeting, and at the end of the meeting that you feel encouraged that there are many of us who take the issue of human trafficking seriously, and there are awesome things that are happening here in our community and around the nation. For those of you who may be new to our meetings, I'd like to introduce our organization. We are the Human Trafficking Task Force of Southern Colorado, a grassroots nonprofit organization based here in Colorado Springs. We are governed by a board and all volunteer based. We've been active in this community for 13 years now, and everything that we do stems from the passion and drive of our board members, our amazing volunteers, and community members. Our vision is to end modern day slavery in Southern Colorado. Our mission is to be involved in preventing labor and sex trafficking through awareness and advocacy, intervening in the human trafficking cycle through collaboration with individuals, agencies, and organizations, and connecting those impacted by modern day slavery to restorative services. The things that we do, what we're involved in, are these monthly meetings. We've held these meetings for 13 years on the second Tuesday of every month. We also do community presentations, like an introduction to human trafficking. We have Lisa Brandt, who does those presentations for us. She is at this meeting this evening, so if you would like a presentation, please reach out to her in the chat. We have an annual symposium as well as an annual advocacy day at the Capitol, a diversion program, and we do survivor support. Speaking of our annual symposium, I want to say a huge thank you to those of you who either attended live or have watched the recorded version of our event. We were really excited to actually be able to pull that off. It was a lot of work, kind of fun to learn new things. We're just glad it was successful. We've had more than 600 views of that event, and it's really exciting to know that that information that was shared is reaching many people in our community and beyond. If you were unable to watch that, it is still available on YouTube. 2 of those sessions, Megan Lundstrom with the Avery Center and Peter Qualiotine, those sessions are still available. For those of you who are interested in the follow-up and talking specifically about the potential of a sex buyers program here in our community, we will be able to host some of those meetings in the next couple of months. So stay tuned for those details in the future and reach out to me if you have questions. I'd like to switch to some other types of announcements. It is November, and I know that a lot of people are starting to think Christmas shopping. For those of us who are involved in human trafficking, we think about labor trafficking, forced labor. We really want to encourage you to do fair trade shopping. The next 3 slides are from organizations that are here in the Colorado Springs area. SACSOM and our very own Joey Neff, who is on the meeting tonight, is a representative with SACSOM. They're an organization that's based in Cambodia, and they provide support for women and children who make the stuff that they sell so that they can prevent them from being trafficked. The next slide is for Kairos Traders. This is an organization that is based out of the YWAM building. I put the 505 Pope's Bluff Trail. If you like to shop in person, they've got a great little boutique. They also allow shopping online. They are a great organization to support, and they've continued to do great things through the COVID-19 crisis. And the third is Yobel Market. They have a new shop at 1604 South Cascade Avenue, or you can also shop them online. I just really challenge and encourage you to do shopping that has a purpose and that supports individuals who are in our community as well as around the world who are making those products that are fairly traded and ethically sourced. The next announcement that I have is a fundraiser, Trafficking to Stop Trafficking by Oxymorons Comedy. This is a group that has supported us for a few years now, and they've had 3 or 4 events through this last year. Part of the money that goes into the tickets that have been purchased will come back to our task force to help us fund our events and other survivor support. So if you would like to have a fun evening at home, but watching a live stream event, the information can be found at oxymoronscomedy.net. Next, I'd like to ask if Seuss Hess is here. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and give the announcement that you have for Restore Innocence.
Hi, Restore Innocence just successfully moved. We're very grateful for lots of help doing that. If anyone feels like getting out and going on a quick stroll this Sunday from 2 to 5, we're having an open house. With COVID, you can walk in the front door, walk through, and walk out the back door. So it's 3 to 5 this Sunday, and our address is now 5019 List Drive. That's not far from Marigolds, near Centennial and Garden of the Gods. We'll have some signs up in the neighborhood. We send out restoration bags all over the country to have at the point of recovery for law enforcement. So a lot of what you'll see is what goes into putting those bags together. Thank you.
Thanks, Seuss. I know you guys are super excited about your new place and the space that it will offer you, especially for all the items that go in those restoration bags. I would encourage everyone to look into the lists that they have available on their website of things that you can buy to help them make those restoration bags. All of that information is on their website. Sarah's Home also has something coming up. They've been doing a series called Coffee with a Catalyst, and their next event is on November 18th. You see the link to register there. That will be a continuation of Jenny Sue Jessen's story She is with Compass 31, and I believe she's here this evening. But if you are interested in taking a look at that, please go ahead and register. And our final one is for The Place. For those of you who don't know who The Place is, it's an organization that works with youth who are experiencing homelessness here in our community. For those of you who have been in the anti-trafficking movement for a while, you know that youth are particularly vulnerable, and then add homelessness on top of that, and you've got a situation that is very intense, and those kids are very vulnerable to being trafficked. They do a night out project. This will be happening on November 19th and 20th. And you can go to theplace.com to find out more information on how to support and be a part of prevention of human trafficking by supporting a great organization. Like I said last month, you guys, we have had an outrageous amount of organizations who have been coming and attending our meetings, and I have tried best to get it on just 2 slides. I'm absolutely positive that I missed probably 10 or 12. So it was with no malintent if I was not able to get you listed on these slides. We do have 2 of them, and Joey will, over the next 5 minutes, flip between the 2 of them. If you're interested in who these organizations are, look at the name of the organization, and then the people who registered to be at our meeting tonight are beside them. Please reach out in the chat if you're interested in being involved in any of these organizations. So we'll take the next 5 minutes for a networking break. Go ahead and use that chat and begin networking. And I think I say every month, I'm sorry, we can't provide snacks virtually for you. So you'll just have to sit and drink a glass of water and chat. So the next 5 minutes, please reach out to people who you would like to get to know better. All right, everybody, we've had about 5 minutes. I know there were a ton of you. There were so many things going on in that chat, I couldn't even keep track. If you've never used the chat function where you can save all of the chat that happened on your computer, you can do that. I have made the mistake of not saving my chat, and then I wanted to reach out to people post-event and then couldn't find the information. So maybe in the next few minutes, find those 3 little dots, and you can save your chat at the end to keep everybody's information. Anything that came across your screen, you can save. So let's move on to introducing our speakers. This month we have Jenny Hansen, Melissa Jackson, who I think has a new last name, but I'm not sure if we have the right one, and Sarah Woodcock with El Paso County Human Trafficking Coalition. They are caseworkers for El Paso County's Department of Human Services, and they facilitate the El Paso County Human Trafficking Coalition. The El Paso Human Trafficking Coalition is comprised of professionals in our county who work with survivors of trafficking in some capacity. The coalition seeks to create partnerships and effective communication between community organizations. The primary goal of the coalition is to work together to fill gaps in services provided to survivors in our community. So Jenny and Melissa and Sarah, whoever's going to speak first, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm not sure we've ever been able to have you at one of our meetings, or at least not one that I've attended. So I'm glad that you're able to be here and share with everybody what the coalition is all about. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julie. So I'm here, and then Melissa Jackson, she just recently was married. And so if you see anything that says Melissa Koffel, it is the same person. So she is Melissa Jackson now. She is able to be here, but Sarah Woodcock was not able to be. So I'll let Melissa introduce herself because I will be doing most of the talking tonight.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yep. New last name, Jackson's the correct one, but you're probably going to see both for a little bit if you keep emailing and stuff, because it's weird and it takes forever to change your name. So I work with El Paso County. Was kind of presented, we're caseworkers. So me and Sarah, we do intake casework, which means we take assessments and we go check on kids, make sure they're safe, and do all the intervention stuff. My unit is specifically the sex abuse intervention and family education unit. So we work with not only just sexually abused kids, but also human trafficking, and we take all the trafficking calls as well. So that's kind of how I got into the coalition and my role in it. And I help co-chair with Jenny and all that stuff. So I'm still pretty new. I think I was just introduced in March or something. So I'm also still learning the ropes, and Sarah's even newer. I think she's only been here a couple months with us now. But I can speak for both of us, and I say we're really excited to be here and excited for what the coalition is being able to accomplish this year, especially now that we all have a little bit of extra time with COVID.
Definitely. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I have a presentation. It is mostly to keep me on track, just to guide me through the conversation, because this presentation I could get off track pretty easily. But I do want to just say, first off, is thank you so much for having us. It really is an honor, and being able to work with the coalition. We have, some of you join us for our coalition meetings, and I am blown away. I've been able to attend, I think this was my 4th or 5th symposium of yours. And I mean, I'm not, like, I just want to let you guys know, like, I've been to a lot of conferences, a lot of trainings on human trafficking, and it is really easy to leave those feeling discouraged and overwhelmed and feeling like this issue is way too big. How can we even, like, where do we even begin? And I've never felt that with your symposiums, leaving those symposiums. So I just want to say you guys are incredible and doing really great work. And I know it's like even more than what you've shared this morning, shared already during the introduction. So I do want to say a little bit about Sarah because she's not able to be here. So Sarah works with our military intake unit, and we were just able to bring her on with the coalition because she has a passion for human trafficking as well. And so she isn't able to be here because she is on immediates, but she is such an incredible such an incredible resource for our coalition as well. And then, of course, you already met Melissa. I do want to share just about me, because I think it's really good to have an understanding of our jobs and where we're coming from, just because we do see human trafficking through different perspectives. So I work with the Department of Human Services. I'm a caseworker with the Chafee unit. It's Chafee Foster Care Independence Program. So I work with youth who are 14 to 21 who are aging out of foster care. So the youth that I work with, their goal is not to return home. They will emancipate from foster care. And so what we do is we just help them find apartments, find jobs, and transition successfully. So a lot of the things that we do are things that a parent would normally do with a youth, but they don't have the parents, they don't have the connections that other youth have. So that's where I'm coming from. And just a statistic that I wanted to share with you all, and why it's such a passion for us and why we love working with survivors, and how we see it so often is Shared Hope International shared a statistic in, I think, 2016, where they said 85% of domestic minor sex trafficking victims have experienced contact with the child welfare system. And so all of us facilitators of the coalition are caseworkers with DHS, and we just want to make sure that we are providing the best services, the best wraparound services for survivors that we possibly can. Now, we come from that perspective, and the people in our coalition come from all different, working with adults. Sometimes, and Sarah or Melissa can speak to this too, but sometimes we work with parents who have experienced trafficking. But from my experience, I'm working with adolescents. So I just wanted to share that, because I do think it's really helpful to know where we're coming from. So another thing I did want to share, because I know before I worked at DHS, I would have loved this information. And so I just wanted to share kind of the process of when a hotline call comes in, just because a lot of you all are mandated reporters. And if you aren't, obviously you have a passion to protect children, protect people in general. And so if you are making a report, I just wanted to share a really quick overview of the process, just so you guys have an idea of what happens when you do make a call into our hotline. So if you call our hotline and make a child abuse report, then you the hotline screener will ask you a series of questions, and then after you're done, that hotline report will go to a red team. So the red team is made up of people throughout the department, and we all will just read through the report, whatever you have provided us, and then based on that information alone, we decide whether that meets Children's Code Volume 7 requirements for abuse and neglect. And so if it does, then that moves on to an intake worker. So Melissa or Sarah might get that case at that point. If it doesn't meet those requirements, then we screen it out. And so, so then Melissa or Sarah, especially if it's human trafficking, one of their units will get that report. And then they will work with that family. And our hope, our goal is always to keep the kid in the home. And if that is not possible because it's not safe, then eventually that will move on to an ongoing worker, which then if parental rights are terminated, or if the goal just becomes that they are not going to return home and they're going to be emancipating out of foster care, then it will move on to me as well. And after their DHS case has closed, I will continue working with them until they're 21, and that's actually going to extend until 23. Okay, moving on about the coalition. So here's just a picture of Melissa. I wasn't sure if she was going to be able to make it. And so there's Melissa and this is Sarah, because I think it's really good to have a face with a name. And that is one of our goals with the coalition, is to have a face with a name, because we see the value in that. And so just so you guys can see, there is Sarah. She is an actual person. Okay. So about the coalition and why we started. So when I began working at the department 5 years ago, I had came from working at a restoration home for survivors in Ohio. And so I was already pretty educated on working with survivors. And we get here, and I was working with a youth who, she had frequent runaways. She even disclosed, like came back from a run and disclosed that she had been forced to have sex for money. And so one of the workers on her team said, trafficking doesn't happen in the United States, it happens in Mexico or Asia. And that's when I met with my supervisor and I said, hey, we need to do some education around what trafficking is, because there are a lot of misconceptions and there's a lot of myths out there about trafficking, and what does that actually look like. And it does look different here than it does in other countries. And so at that time, my coworker Tara Hall and I were able to develop a training for caseworkers, just so that they could see the signs of trafficking, so that if any of their kids on their caseload were showing those signs, or adults on their caseloads were showing those signs, then they would know what to do, and then the next steps of what to do after that. And so at that point, I started reaching out to some people, because I had a few youth on my caseload that were survivors of trafficking. And I started reaching out from a resource list to try to find a good therapist for them. And as I was calling around, I found that even though they were on this resource list that served survivors, by the time I called them or emailed them, they would say, we don't actually work with survivors. And so at that point I said, okay, we need to figure out, I figured this out. No, it was like a team effort, obviously. But we all talked and we said we need to figure out who actually works with survivors in our county and get them all together, so that we know where are the gaps, how can we fill those gaps. And there are probably a lot of people who are doing amazing things that we just don't know about, and we want to circle around these survivors and provide as much resources as possible. So the coalition began in 2017. We had started talking about it in 2016, and then January 2017, we had our first coalition meeting, which is really exciting because we're about to come up on 4 years for the coalition, which is awesome and something to be celebrated. So we also were looking at who has a coalition in this state and who is doing things really well. And we reached out to Jefferson County's coalition because they are doing amazing things, so much so that they had reached their goals and didn't have to meet as often as they were meeting. And so we met with them. We were able to attend some coalition meetings up there. And then they also have a multidisciplinary team, and we were able to attend some of those meetings as well. And so based off of what they were doing in Jefferson County, we had a good idea of what we wanted to model our coalition and multidisciplinary team from. So I know that you all have worked with the Laboratory to Combat Human Trafficking for your task force. And so just going off of the 4 Ps that they have to address human trafficking. So there's prevention, prosecution, protection, and then partnership. And so just because you guys have worked with them before, I wanted to just note that we would be the partnership part of that P. Or that's how we see ourselves. That's our goal. Okay, so I do want to highlight some of our successes, and I'm highlighting 5, but there are obviously a lot more than 5 successes throughout our 4 years of being a coalition. So the first one, and one of the biggest ones that we wanted to accomplish, was creating connections and relationships across the county. And we have been able to do that by putting a face with a name, like I said earlier, and meeting and just learning what everybody offers to different people. And yeah, so I could say a lot more about that, but I mean, just knowing each other, having those relationships, it makes it a lot easier to be able to reach out, even if you have a question that's not necessarily related to trafficking, but just to provide services for our youth and whoever we're serving in the best way possible. The other thing that came out of it, and I hinted at this earlier, was the creation of the law enforcement multidisciplinary team. I don't know why that's so hard for me to say right now. So yeah, so out of meeting, our FBI victim advocate, she took the reins on that and made the connections, and we meet monthly as a multidisciplinary team, and at the district attorney's office. So the district attorney's office is there, CSPD, sheriff's office, DHS. I'm going to be missing people, I know for sure, but it's a place where we can talk about cases, especially, so this would be like the P, that's prosecution. So we talk about cases, specifically the cases that are actually being prosecuted. And so that's a place where we can kind of wrap around and figure out how to best prosecute those cases. Okay, the third success. I love talking about this one because it is just such a good highlight of why we became a coalition. So our FBI victim advocate was sharing in a coalition meeting one day that she would have these girls in her car for hours upon hours a day. And the FBI doesn't give them a discretionary fund to be able to provide meals for the youth while they're in the car with them all day. And she was just sharing about that. And your very own Wendy Smith, I think she's here tonight too, but Wendy Smith, through Unveiled Ministry, decided, she just said, like, hey, I can provide you with some Chick-fil-A gift cards. And it was just such a tangible need that our victim advocate had. And Wendy Smith was able to meet that need in that meeting just because she heard of it. And so going along with that, I mean, that's something that has blown me away, and I've been really encouraged just to be able to be a part of the coalition. But it's just seeing how people in the community want to meet needs and they just don't know what they are. But if they know what they are, then they will be generous. And it is mind-blowing and super encouraging to see that happen. And so in that same vein, DHS has been able to partner with the Care Portal. So the Care Portal, if you all aren't aware, so the Care Portal is, they partner with faith-based organizations here in Colorado Springs, well, El Paso County, and so it's individuals that are at these churches. And I'm not sure if there are other faith organizations, but I know that it can spread up to other faith organizations. And we as DHS would, I've been working with a girl, I'll just give this example. So, because it's like one of my favorite ones too. So I was working with a girl who had a baby, and she just needed diapers. And so we requested diapers through the Care Portal, and it went out to all of these churches, that request. And there was a woman who responded to me and said, you know what, like, I had a baby when I was a teenager as well, and now I've been very successful, and I've actually been looking for a way to give back to a mom that is a teenager. And so so she reached out to me, And I had only asked for diapers, but this woman went to Costco and she bought diapers and paper towels and paper plates. I mean, her trunk was full of items for this girl. And so we were able to drop those off. And it was a way to bless this girl that didn't have a baby shower. She didn't have items from her connections, you know, and so and that's just one of the stories of the care portal. I mean, they are incredible individuals here in our county. So anyway, we had been working with the care portal, and so it became clear that it could be a really good resource for other people in the community as well. And so Restore Innocence was able to start to partner with them a few years ago and request items for the survivors they work with, for the FBI, for the CSPD, for Sarah's home. I'm probably missing some, but I know Restore Innocence has done incredible work through that as well. And then the fifth success, and I'm going to share this, and I'm going to be a little biased because this is my church and my husband works at our church. But Mountain Springs Church began working with Sarah's home and working with the girls there, and they have been able to work in the aquaponics greenhouse and develop some job training skills. But also, our church has been able to save up money for them as they're working in the aquaponics greenhouse, so that by the time they graduate the program, then they have this money that they're able to graduate with. And so that's one of the things that when we were first starting as a coalition, Jefferson County, we reached out to them and I sent the distribution list and I said, hey, who are we missing? Who would you say that you have invited to your coalition meetings that we haven't thought of? And they said, where are your faith communities? Because there are people in your community that want to give, and you just need to reach out to them. And I've seen that through the care portal. I've seen that through the churches that come to our coalition meetings as well. And like I said, I could share so many more success stories, but we'll just stop it for there. Okay, so moving on to our goals. And right now I'm going to share 4 current goals that we have as a coalition. So the first one is just re-educating our caseworkers on the reality of trafficking. And that is something that us as facilitators, we're all working on right now. There are a lot of new caseworkers that are eager and ready to do really great work. But they aren't educated on human trafficking when they first start into working at the department. And so that's one thing that we're doing. And along with that, to partner with the coalition is just adding in like who we have relationships with, who they can refer their parents to, their youth to. And I mean, I'm thinking of Restore Innocence with their mentor program. I mean, that is an incredible program. I know you all know this. I'm not telling you something that you don't know, but some of our caseworkers aren't aware of what's out there, and so that's a way that we can share who are the resources, who are the people that we trust, that we've worked with, because we aren't going to be referring out to people that we don't really know, because we care a lot about the people that we work with. So that's the first one. And then a second, we are partnering with your very own Jenny Sue of Compass 31 to provide provide feedback for the coalition and how we can better serve survivors. So we are really looking forward to that, to working with her. We've already been able to talk with her, and she's just seems like an incredible human being. So I'm really excited to hear how we can continue to partner with her. And that's another thing that the Laboratory to Combat Human Trafficking really suggested, that we work with local survivors in having a voice in how we are managing our coalition. And I know as facilitators, we have been wanting to be very intentional about how we do that. And yeah, so I'm just really excited to be able to work with Jenny Sue. So the third goal that we have is just connecting with other coalitions across the state and learning about services provided in other counties. So we've been able to connect with other coalitions through the Laboratory to Combat Human Trafficking, and then just learning about other services that are provided, because a lot of times survivors aren't going to stay in their communities that they were trafficked in. And so, and for good reason, for protection and just to help, you know, in the healing process. And so we have been talking a lot about wanting to partner and figure out what is provided up in Denver, what is provided on the Western Slope, just so that we do have services to point survivors to if they do choose to move away from our county. And then the fourth goal that I will say is increasing communication between coalition meetings. So what we want that to look like is being able to stay up to date on what events are happening in our community, and the different fundraisers, the symposium that was happening. Sometimes we do send out emails here and there between coalition meetings, but a lot of times there are things happening that we just don't know about. So that's one way we want to increase communication. But for another reason we want to increase communication is just to be talking about resources. And I know, Melissa, Sarah, and I, our caseworkers, our minds do work in the way to provide services that we're just constantly thinking about how can we wrap around this person to provide them support. But we only know what we know. And so if we could reach out to the coalition as a whole, if everyone, in the coalition can reach out to everyone and just say, I'm looking for housing for this person, and I need to know if anyone has anything else, any other organizations that I'm not thinking of. So that's another goal of ours. And then lastly, I know you all had asked about working, what it looks like to be working with survivors in El Paso County, what those cases look like. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about what my experience has been, and then Melissa will share what her experience has been too. So I have seen a few trends in trafficking throughout the past few years. The first one that I will mention, and I'm not sure if this is related to Backpage closing down, or I don't really know what caused this to blow up in the way that it did, or maybe it just happened to be the youth that I was working with. But sugar daddy apps have exploded, and many of our youth, especially youth who are aging out of care, are hearing about sugar daddy apps, and it's a quick way to make money. And so that is something that I have seen. So there has to be a lot of conversations around safe relationships, putting yourself in safe situations. And so that's just a trend that I have seen blow up in the last couple of years. And so along with that, there's just prevention education that we have used through our program for our youth, called I Empathize. And so if you haven't heard of it, it's a curriculum that teaches about healthy relationships and prevents exploitation. So it's helped us to have a lot of really good conversations with our youth, especially conversations that will help them recognize some trends in their own life. And then we can talk about that and work from there. Oh, and then in that, I will say we had I Empathize come and present at a coalition meeting, and probation then decided to start using their curriculum, which was incredible. And then Unveiled Ministry has also used I Empathize in the community to prevent exploitation for youth that they work with. The other trend that I have seen through working at the department, and I know I'm being very general when I'm talking about all of these trends, but the third one that I've seen is the generational trafficking. And so I have had many, many girls who their moms have been prostituting, and by the time the girls are of a certain age, then they will teach them to prostitute as well, which leads them into trafficking, obviously. So just generational trafficking happening. And then, oh, I did just want to say for our program specifically, because we are trying to find our youth apartments and affordable housing, something that we have seen is not putting youth in certain areas of town. And so just to be blunt, like we will never put a youth in an apartment off of South Nevada where it meets 25, because we have put multiple youth in those apartments because it's affordable. And yet, no matter who we put in those apartments, within 3 months, they've experienced some form of exploitation. And so, so that is just another trend that I've seen, and we will not do that because we want our youth to be as safe as possible. But obviously, affordable housing is an issue, not only in our community, but especially with the youth that I work with. That's something that I've seen. So I'll let Melissa share about her experience as well.
Yeah, so my experience very much echoes what Jenny's is. We've had a couple unique opportunities on the SAFE team with us. I would say definitely like foster homes are a problem, because a lot of times we know that our trafficking victims shouldn't always stay where they were being trafficked. We find that we have a lot of success if we send those kiddos elsewhere outside of the county, so they don't have immediate access to a lot of those same people that they were rolling with before. Because we had kids running away from their houses and then going and getting trafficked again, like literally within 12 hours. So we've started kind of spreading out, but foster homes are definitely a problem. We don't have, I mean, it's kind of notorious on the intake side of things that if you've got a teenager, especially a girl, you need to start placement before you even think you're going to need to place them, because it takes so long to find a placement that will take a teenage girl. And then if you add trafficking on top of it, it's near impossible. So we definitely struggle with foster homes and care homes for those trafficking victims. My unit had a really unique situation. It's like a year ago now, where we actually got the first labor trafficking case in Colorado for minors. And we learned a lot from that because there was no protocol. We made the protocol. And it's actually being approved by state here soon. They've been working on it since we had this case. But my unit, it wasn't me who had it, but my very close coworker. And it was a lot of winging it based on our human trafficking for sexual abuse and then also like environmental neglect kind of thing. And, without giving too much detail, we actually found out throughout the process that there is a law, their statute that allows children from other countries who come here to work outside of regular child laws with parental permission and things like that. So not a great law that we discovered. And we've talked about it a lot in the coalition and about, advocating for that to be changed, because we were talking about, teenage boys working in a factory all day instead of going to school kind of thing. And because they had parental permission, there wasn't much that we could do about it. So really re-looking at those labor laws now that I think labor trafficking has entered the conversation a little bit heavier now. And then working on it with the state to get a set protocol for those kind of things, because if you've never seen it before, you don't know what to do. I don't think we've seen many since. So it's still very much a work in process, but we need to have those protocols in place. And that's been a really cool thing to see come out of a situation that my unit had. But really, the trends are very much, we see a lot of family trafficking where it's a cousin, it's a brother, it's a sister. Seen quite a few of those come up. Once one of them gets in, a lot of them will start joining in as well if they're around the same age. So we definitely try to put in some services to stop that. Obviously, on our end of things, we really want to be preventative, but we're naturally a very reactive system. So we're trying to see if we can catch those kiddos sooner when, we're looking at kids who have a run record and things like that, getting them screened and making sure that we are managing their risk factors and getting services around them so that hopefully we don't get that next report that says, well, now we know they're being trafficked. We found ads online, things like that. And our sergeant that we work with did mention that with COVID, the ads that he's seeing online and on Backspace-esque websites are increasing pretty substantially. So that's something that we've been keeping a pretty close eye on, is those ads. But that's about it for the trends that I'm seeing on my side.
Thanks. Yeah, I also was just going to share our contact information in case you all wanted to just take a picture of that. I know it's probably going to be in the chat as well, but just wanted to add that at the end. And yeah, I know that there is going to be a Q&A session at the end, and Melissa and I are happy to answer any questions that you all have that we have the answers to.
Great. Thank you guys for sharing. I really hope that there's a lot of people that found out some good information. It's nice to know that there are different types of task forces and coalitions that address and meet different needs. One thing we all know is that it takes an army to address all of the issues that surround human trafficking, and it's just a pleasure to know that you guys are here. Jane, host Jane Jones, are you? I don't see you in the boxes, but I know you're here somewhere. So do we have any questions?
I'm in the boxes. Yes, we do have some boxes. So thank you, Jenny and Melissa, so much. We appreciate you and appreciate you being here tonight. Lisa Brandt, who is our chair for education and presentations with the task force, wanted me to share just a little special thing for you, Jenny, and that she just wanted to say that your vibrant and encouraging spirit in the fight against human trafficking in our community is a joy and an asset to us all. And thank you for sharing tonight and for all your efforts to create organizational partnerships, survivor services among us in El Paso County. And Lisa says it's an honor to serve alongside people such as yourself. So, and coming from Lisa Brandt, you can believe that for sure.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Yeah, that means a lot. That means a lot.
So we do have some good questions. So from Kendall, we've got, what would be your advice to someone who wants to work in organizations that help human trafficking victims? And thanks for sharing.
Yeah, so I can start off, and then Melissa, feel free to jump in.
Great.
One of the biggest pieces of advice that I have is to do your own work and to make sure that you are in a really healthy place, because I feel like that is said a lot, but I believe that. I believe that with all of my heart, just because you don't want to be able to bring in your own beliefs and situations that you've experienced into working with a survivor. And so that's the first thing that I would just recommend, is doing your own work. And yeah, so that's where I would start. I also would be happy to connect with you. I have a good amount of resources if you are starting out from square one, or if you're already at square 50. I don't know, but yeah, I'm happy to connect to you and just talk about some other resources I would recommend connecting with. Melissa, what would you say?
I definitely second the do your own work. You never know what's going to come up for you until you're in the middle of it. So it's kind of better to try to anticipate what you're going to feel sometimes, because this is very emotional work. It has to be. If we kind of shut off our emotions to all of it, you're not quite hitting the mark on it. I think we all put our hearts and souls into what we do every day. So definitely doing that work, doing those self-checks, working with yourself first and making sure that you're in a place for it. But then honestly, the best thing that got me where I'm at is just connecting with people, because I found my passion for human trafficking from the symposiums while I was in college. It was for an extra credit in one of my classes. It was for sexual abuse against children. And I was like, that sounds really cool. I'm going to go to it. And then I started talking to everyone at that symposium, and it really just changed the way I saw everything, because I was one of those people that's like, okay, I know we have trafficking here, but like, it can't be that big of a deal, but it is. So really just getting out there and finding out who's there, I think matters a lot. And then I feel like there's a little bit of trial and error with finding your place in the mix of everything, and that's okay. I think we all understand that everyone has their own facets and everyone has their own desire to help in their own way. So it's really just kind of finding the perfect place for you and the place that you're going to align best with your talents and your belief systems, and just staying engaged in the community for sure.
Great. Ladies, fantastic, fantastic answers. Thank you so much for sharing that. So Kendall, get in touch with Jenny. And this is from Heidi, and Heidi's asking, what kind of supports do you provide to parents of survivors? She says, I know in our state and in many states, there are tremendous gaps in services for healthy, safe parents that are supporting a child who's been trafficked. As a parent of a survivor, I have been one of those parents searching for services.
Yeah, that's an amazing question. And I know that Sue's through Restore Innocence was just mentioning at our last coalition meeting that there is going to be a parent support group through Restore Innocence. So I would say connect with her or whoever she I'm sure Suze will put information in the chat if it's not her directly, but I would connect with them because that sounds like an incredible resource. So I will put this over to Melissa because by the time that I'm working with the youth, their parents are involved. And so Melissa will have a lot more to say about that.
Great.
So it's kind of funny that this came up the time it did because personally on my caseload, I've got one where I'm really struggling. A kid is extremely high risk, like very high risk, one of the most high risk kids without being trafficked that I've seen. And getting parents on board is really hard, and getting services around them and understanding for them is really hard because it is such a weird concept for people to wrap their heads around. And it's just a very complicated, ingrained form of abuse. So what we've done is definitely getting parents their own therapy to kind of help process that and to have someone professional, kind of walking them through everything and giving them coping skills for some of the behaviors that they're going to see, some of the, kind of aftermath of uncovering that victimization. And a lot of times they take it harder than the kids. We see this in just sex abuse in general, but a lot of times the parents have a little bit more of a realization of the impact and what's going on than the kids do. And sometimes you can get parents that shut down because of that. And you can get parents who just lock up and don't really know what to do next because of those situations. So really, we do a lot of the family therapies. We do a lot of the in-home services, something like family preservation and home-based intervention where they go into the home for a few hours a week. It can be, I think, 4 to 8 hours, depending on need. And they work with the family in real time to kind of address some of the situations, to get a structure in place so the kiddo is a little bit more safe and can't be exploited as easily again. A lot of it is education too, because they don't know what went wrong a lot of the times and how their kid got into such a situation. It's a complicated mess, and we definitely go case by case, but generally we pretty much insist on having their own therapist and then someone to work with the child and the parent together, whether that's in-home or family therapy. It kind of depends on the case.
Great, thank you. I wanted to mention too, Heidi kind of sent a quick follow-up in the chat that if you ever want a parent advocate to reach out to your parents, feel free to contact her, and she left her email address in the chat. So thank you, Heidi, very much for doing that, for offering that. Next question is from Jamie, who is our resident Santa Claus. And caseworkers for foster children do not always make the safety of kids from the risks of trafficking a priority. Would you discuss further your observation about caseworkers' savvy and concern in dealing with kids in care, risk of exploitation and trafficking, and how do you help them? You touched a little bit on this already. Are you a resource to direct caseworkers to learn more?
Oh, Jenny, can I take it? Yes. So this is so funny because I actually was working with an ongoing worker, not in the foster care, but the kiddo was in jail for a different reason. And I was just kind of talking him through it. And she had just run from a foster home. And I'm like, so are you worried about sex trafficking or human trafficking, any kind? And he was like, well, I don't know. What am I looking for? And he has experience in a different state. He has experience with us. And I was like, oh, bingo, now we found the problem. So once I explained some of the risk factors and what to look for in kids who are being trafficked, he's like, you need to get an assessment on this kid right now. So we were able to kind of teamwork that. But we definitely are realizing, and I can speak, I only went through the Caseworker Academy about a year and a half ago at this point. They talk about human trafficking as a thing that exists in the nether. Like, it's not really anything that is brought home. So it's very glanced over. So that's something that Jenny, Sarah, and I took very seriously after after we've had a couple conversations with caseworkers who are just missing the warning signs. So that's what we're doing our training on, is really trying to instill that into caseworkers. And right now we have the plans to get it department wide and have it mandated department wide to do that training. I think I can definitely speak for us when we would really prefer to also have it to our, Kids Crossing that does the foster home certifications, all of those foster home certification places, pretty much anywhere that we can send that training. I think we all vehemently want it to go there because once people understand the signs, the reports will just start skyrocketing and the people will understand. I think what a lot of our caseworkers think right now is that, home is bad, so they're running away often. And I don't know if they understand that when kids run away, they're exposed to those kinds of people and they're exposed to those situations. And it's really just a hole in the state training. So that's something that we are really taking seriously because we're recognizing that we're probably missing kids because of it, and probably adults too. Something that we realized from one on my caseload is that the hospital just happened to be like, hey, some of the things that this mom was saying was a little indicative of what we'd expect in sex trafficking. So I was like, okay, screened her, and immediately she disclosed that she was being sex trafficked a year ago. So I don't think we think about parents enough either. And that can deeply impact the kid, exactly what Jenny was saying with that generational trafficking. So if we can get, those services in place earlier on, and we can catch those warning signs the second we're seeing them, and add either extra assessments, extra screenings. I know CSPD's forensic interview unit has partnered with us, and they're going to help us on the ones that don't meet volume 7 to be assigned, but still probably need to be screened. They're going to go start screening those kids and possibly adults too in the future, depending on, the caseload that we're getting with that. So we recognize that there's a hole in their training, and we are desperately working to fill it as quickly as we can because we recognize the impact that that's going to have going forward. So I'm hoping that DHS sets the expectation of that training by having all of our county employees, everyone that we can get trained on it. And then hopefully our partners who do the foster care homes and who do whatever else start to pick up on it and ask for that training too, and we can get approval to send it out there.
Excellent. Melissa, that was amazing. And I don't know, we all can see different people, but Jamie was giving you the big clap because you answered his question perfectly. So thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. So we have one more question in the queue, and this is from Tahara. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. My question is, if a child or children is found to have been trafficked, what is the general process for recovery and placement of children in a foster home or apartment, and therapy? What is the age cutoff for foster care? If you need
so I will answer part of, sorry, what?
No, I was saying if you want me to repeat any part of that, just let me know.
Okay, yeah, I will answer part of that, and then I will hand it over to Melissa as well. So as far as cutoff for foster care, 21 is the actual cutoff. Granted, youth can age out when they're 18 to 21. And, with a lot of my youth, I call it, or we affectionately refer to to 18itis, where by the time they are 16, 17, they are done working with the department, and I don't blame them, but they are ready to be living on their own. And so, so many times I say 21, that is very rare, but a lot of times youth will age out by the time they are 18, maybe 19. So somewhere in there. As far as living situations after they are out of foster care, it really is case by case. And one of the biggest, what I see and what my unit sees as one of our biggest goals for working with any of our youth is to connect them with supports in their life, because the majority of the time trauma happens through relationships. And so I am a huge advocate that healing will occur through relationships, and we cannot be that relationship for all of our youth all of the time. And so we will be there until they're 21, eventually until they're 23. However, that's one reason why I push for our survivors to get a mentor through Restore Innocence, because I do shut my phone off at night and they won't be able to contact me all of the time. And so, so anyway, I know that's kind of off topic, but it is case by case, because I've had youth who have stayed here and they live here successfully. They find jobs. If they see their trafficker at Walmart, they can call me and we talk through it, and they are okay because they have the coping skills and they have that level of resiliency. And yet there are other youth who need to move out of this county in order to stay safe. And so, so it really is case by case, but I'll let Melissa share too on her end, but I will also just say, we really are lacking foster homes, especially trauma-informed foster homes. We've been advocates of when youth are rescued, for lack of a better word, from trafficking, then that they won't be placed in Colorado Springs, just because it is, it's easy to run away and be back with their traffickers very quickly. And so, but that is something that isn't normal for most of our youth. We want them to stay home, stay close to home, to keep those relationships with family. And so it is just a switch to think about, like, how can we best serve each survivor, because they are all different and their needs are all different.
Great, thank you, Jenny. Melissa.
Yeah, so on my end of things, I don't have the luxury that Jenny has of working with anyone over the age of 18. So pretty much if you turn 18 the day your assessment gets called in, I'm pretty much not going to be able to do much about it. And that's, something that we realize is definitely a hindrance in, the Child Protective Service is part of it. And that's where we've kind of started working with the CSPD on it and seeing, like, hey, can we go get this, this person screened for human trafficking in a trauma-informed way, especially, and trying to connect them with the victim advocates over there as well, who can help find those housing resources and things like that. Because unfortunately, on the child protective side of it, if you're 18, there's nothing really that we can do to some extent. We definitely can't do a removal. We can't put you in foster care. And kind of what I was mentioning earlier, even our 15, 16, 17-year-olds that we need to find housing for, it's extremely difficult. It's literally like a well-known fact around DHS that if you've got to pull orders on a teenager, you're going to be in tough shape for a little bit, because it's going to be really hard to find a placement for them. We definitely look at safe family members who are background checked, and we can do kinship packets for and kinship studies on. We try to get really, really creative, because we understand that foster homes are not really a largely viable option for us most of the time. But we also, if it's that intrafamilial trafficking that I was talking about, where, it's a family member trafficking them, we also feel that natural hesitation to put them with a different family member who might not be as protective as we want them to be. So it's a crazy balancing act that we're constantly doing, and could definitely be alleviated by maybe foster homes that are specific to trafficking victims, or even just more foster homes willing to take teenagers. and then a better way to link those 18-plus-year-olds with either Chafee or someone else that can help them out too, because we totally fall short right there because we're Child Protective Services.
Thank you so much, ladies. I don't see any more questions. I did want to mention that I'm going to post once again our Human Trafficking Task Force wish list, Amazon wish list. There's a link there. If you are interested in helping survivors with donating items that are frequently asked for and frequently requested, we have many organizations here that we partner with here in Colorado Springs and El Paso County, and so we'd like to be able to offer them some items when needed. So please feel free to go and do a little shopping, and you just have to order it. It'll get sent to the right place. So Julie?
Yeah. Well, Jenny and Melissa, thank you again for joining us tonight, for sharing your passion and your knowledge with us. For everyone who attended, thank you for giving us so much of your time. We've run a little bit longer than we have the past few months, but I think it was well worth the time spent. A few things that I hope that you've taken away from our meeting this evening, listening to Jenny and Melissa's real life, up in your face experience, is that we know that trafficking happens here. We know that youth are being trafficked here. The positive thing is that there are people here, a network of people here who are choosing to work together to bridge gaps and just collaborate to meet the needs. So I hope you will continue to find out more information about El Paso County Coalition. Continue coming to our meetings and reaching out to the other organizations that are here. Get involved somehow. Not all of us can meet all of the needs. That's why there are so many. That's why there are so many organizations, and that's why it is absolutely crucial for us to work together. So we have about 5 minutes before we turn off the meeting. Please continue to chat and network with each other. Reach out. If you're comfortable, go have coffee with somebody and find a need that you can meet, maybe even tomorrow. Reach out to Jenny and Melissa. They did give their information. And just a quick reminder to save that chat if there were people that you wanted to reach out to later. Before the meeting turns off, you need to have that chat saved. So thank you again for attending the November monthly meeting of the Human Trafficking Task Force of Southern Colorado. It is an absolute privilege to be a part of this community.